Hi everyone, welcome to today's video. We're going to learn about John F. Kennedy's life in a simple and easy to understand way. This story is perfect for practicing your English listening. Birth, childhood and family. John Fitzgerald Kennedy, often called JFK, was born on May 29, 1917, in Brookline, Massachusetts, a suburb of Boston. He was born into one of America's wealthiest and most politically influential families. His father, Joseph P. Kennedy Sr., was a successful businessman, investor, and later a government official who served as the United States ambassador to the United Kingdom. His mother, Rose Fitzgerald Kennedy, was the daughter of John "Honey" Fitzgerald, a prominent Boston political figure who served as mayor of Boston. John was the second of 9 children in the Kennedy family. His siblings included Joseph Jr., Rosemary, Kathleen, Eunice, Patricia, Robert, Jean, and Edward Ted. The Kennedy household was competitive, athletic, and placed a high value on political awareness and academic achievement. Joseph Kennedy had ambitious plans for his children, particularly his sons, whom he expected to pursue careers in public service. Despite the family's wealth and privilege, John's childhood was marked by frequent illnesses. He suffered from various health problems including whooping cough, measles, chickenpox, and frequent bronchitis. At age 3, he contracted scarlet fever, a potentially life-threatening illness at that time. These health challenges meant that young John spent considerable time bedridden, during which he developed a love of reading and learning. The Kennedy family moved frequently during John's early years, dividing their time between their homes in Massachusetts, New York, and Florida. They also traveled to Europe, where Joseph Kennedy's diplomatic position exposed the children to international affairs and prominent world figures. This upbringing gave John a broad worldview from an early age and contributed to his interest in history, politics, and international relations. Despite his health issues, John participated in family activities whenever possible. The Kennedy children were encouraged to engage in sports and outdoor activities, with sailing being a particular favorite. These experiences fostered John's lifelong love of the sea and competitive spirit. Family dinners at the Kennedy home often included discussions of current events and politics, with the children expected to be informed and to express their opinions clearly. Education and formation. John F. Kennedy's formal education began at Edward Devotion School, a public school in Brookline, Massachusetts. When the family moved to New York, he attended Riverdale Country School, a private school in the Bronx. Later, he was sent to Canterbury School, a Catholic boarding school in Connecticut, but illness forced him to leave after only 2 months. In 1931, at age 13, Kennedy entered Choate Rosemary Hall, an elite preparatory school in Wallingford, Connecticut. Although intelligent, Kennedy was not an exceptional student at Choate. He was more interested in sports and social activities than academics. His school reports often noted his charm and social skills but criticized his lack of academic discipline. Despite this, he graduated in 1935 and was voted most likely to succeed by his classmates. After graduating from Choate, Kennedy briefly attended Princeton University but had to withdraw due to illness. After recovering, he enrolled at Harvard College in 1936, following in the footsteps of his older brother, Joseph Jr. at Harvard. Kennedy initially continued his pattern of prioritizing social life over academics, but he gradually became more serious about his studies, particularly in history and political science. Kennedy's education took a significant turn when his father was appointed U.S. ambassador to the United Kingdom in 1938. John spent part of that year working at the American Embassy in London and traveled throughout Europe. These experiences exposed him to the growing threat of fascism and the possibility of war in Europe. When he returned to Harvard, he focused his studies on international affairs and European politics. For his senior thesis at Harvard, Kennedy wrote about Britain's unpreparedness for war with Germany. This thesis was later published as a book titled Why England Slept, which became a bestseller. Kennedy graduated from Harvard in 1940 with a Bachelor of Science degree in International Affairs, cum laude. After Harvard, Kennedy briefly attended Stanford University Graduate School of Business before deciding to join the U.S. Navy in 1941. Following the attack on Pearl Harbor and America's entry into World War II. His military service would prove to be a formative experience, testing his leadership abilities and physical courage in ways that would later influence his political career. Throughout his education, Kennedy developed the skills and knowledge that would serve him in his future political career. A deep understanding of history and international relations, strong communication abilities, and the social charm and confidence that came from his privileged upbringing. His education also instilled in him a sense of public service and responsibility that was central to the Kennedy family ethos. Early professional career. John F. Kennedy's professional career began with his military service during World War II. Despite his chronic back problems and other health issues, Kennedy was determined to serve in the military. Using his father's political connections, he joined the U.S. Naval Reserve in October 1941, 2 months before the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor. Initially, Kennedy was assigned to an office position in Washington, D.C., but he persistently requested combat duty. In 1943, he was given command of a patrol torpedo boat, PT-109, in the South Pacific. On August 2, 1943, while patrolling near the Solomon Islands, PT-109 was rammed and cut in half by a Japanese destroyer. 2 crew members were killed, and Kennedy and the other survivors were stranded in the ocean. Kennedy showed remarkable leadership and courage during this crisis. Despite his own injuries, he led the surviving crew members to a small island several miles away, with Kennedy towing one badly injured sailor by clenching the strap of the man's life jacket between his teeth as he swam. After several days on the island, Kennedy swam to neighboring islands to find help, eventually leading to their rescue. For his heroism, Kennedy was awarded the Navy and Marine Corps Medal and the Purple Heart. After his military service, Kennedy briefly worked as a special correspondent for Hearst newspapers, covering the United Nations Conference in San Francisco and the British elections in 1945. However, his professional focus soon turned to politics, influenced by family expectations and his own ambitions. In 1946, at the age of 29, Kennedy ran for the U.S. House of Representatives from Massachusetts's 11th Congressional District. With the strong support of his family, particularly his father's financial backing and his grandfather's political connections, Kennedy won the Democratic primary and then the general election. He served 3 terms in the House of Representatives, from 1947 to 1953. As a congressman, Kennedy often broke from the Democratic Party line. He supported housing and labor legislation but was more conservative on some economic issues. He took a strong anti-communist stance in foreign policy, reflecting the Cold War tensions of the era. During this period, Kennedy also traveled extensively, visiting Israel, India, Pakistan, Vietnam, and other countries, deepening his understanding of international affairs. In 1952, Kennedy successfully ran for the U.S. Senate, defeating the incumbent Republican, Henry Cabot Lodge Jr. This victory was significant as it came during a year when Republicans, led by Dwight D. Eisenhower, won many elections nationwide. As a senator, Kennedy continued to focus on foreign policy and labor issues. He also began to build a national profile, partly through his 1953 marriage to Jacqueline Bouvier, a match that attracted considerable media attention. Kennedy's early professional career was marked by a rapid rise in politics, aided by his family's resources and connections, but also driven by his own ambition, intelligence, and charisma. His war heroism provided a compelling personal narrative, while his growing expertise in foreign affairs positioned him as a serious political figure despite his youth. By the mid-1950s, Kennedy was already being mentioned as a potential future presidential candidate. Personal life and relationships. John F. Kennedy's personal life was complex, marked by both public charm and private struggles. His most significant personal relationship was with Jacqueline Bouvier, whom he met at a dinner party in 1952. Jackie, as she was known, was a well-educated, sophisticated young woman who worked as a photographer for the Washington Times-Herald. They married on September 12, 1953, in Newport, Rhode Island, in a high-profile ceremony that attracted 700 guests and significant media attention. The Kennedy-Bouvier marriage brought together two individuals with shared interests in literature, history, and the arts, but also with different temperaments. Jackie was more private and reserved, while John was outgoing and enjoyed the spotlight. Their marriage faced challenges, including Kennedy's frequent absences due to his political career and his extramarital affairs, which were kept hidden from the public but caused private pain. John and Jackie had 4 children, though only 2 survived to adulthood. Their first child, a daughter named Arabella, was stillborn in 1956. Their daughter Caroline was born in 1957, and their son John Jr., often called John, was born in 1960, just weeks after Kennedy was elected president. Their 4th child, Patrick, was born prematurely in August 1963 and died 2 days later, a tragedy that briefly brought the couple closer together in their shared grief. Kennedy's health was a constant personal challenge that he kept largely hidden from the public. He suffered from Addison's disease, a serious adrenal gland disorder, and chronic back pain resulting from injuries sustained during his military service and exacerbated by a failed back surgery. He often used crutches when out of public view and received regular injections of painkillers and other medications to manage his conditions. Despite these health issues, Kennedy projected an image of youth, vigor, and vitality that became central to his public persona. Kennedy maintained close relationships with his large extended family, particularly his younger brothers Robert and Edward, who were also his political allies. Robert served as his campaign manager and later as Attorney General in his administration, while Edward later became a long-serving U.S. Senator. The Kennedy family gatherings at their compound in Hyannisport, Massachusetts, were important occasions for maintaining family bonds and for informal political discussions. Beyond his family, Kennedy had a wide circle of friends and associates, including artists, intellectuals, journalists, and fellow politicians. He enjoyed stimulating conversation and surrounded himself with bright, talented people. His friendship with the British Prime Minister Harold Macmillan was particularly significant, as was his complex relationship with his Vice President, Lyndon B. Johnson. Kennedy's personal life also included numerous extramarital affairs, some of which posed potential security risks due to his position. His relationships with women, including actress Marilyn Monroe, alleged mob connections through shared girlfriend Judith Campbell Exner, and White House intern Mimi Alford have been extensively documented by historians. These aspects of Kennedy's personal life were kept hidden from the public during his lifetime, but have become part of the historical record in the decades since his death. Despite these personal complexities, Kennedy maintained a public image as a devoted family man and loving father. The photographs of his children visiting him in the Oval Office and playing under his desk became iconic images of his presidency, contributing to the sense of youth and renewal that his administration represented to many Americans. Major achievements and contributions. John F. Kennedy's presidency, though brief, was marked by significant achievements and contributions that continue to influence American politics and society. One of his most enduring legacies was in the area of civil rights. Initially cautious on civil rights issues, Kennedy evolved to take a stronger stance as the civil rights movement gained momentum. In June 1963, following dramatic civil rights protests in Birmingham, Alabama, Kennedy delivered a televised address proposing comprehensive civil rights legislation. Though he did not live to see it passed, this proposal eventually became the landmark Civil Rights Act of 1964, signed into law by his successor Lyndon B. Johnson. In foreign policy, Kennedy faced several major crises that tested his leadership. The most dangerous was the Cuban Missile Crisis of October 1962, when the Soviet Union placed nuclear missiles in Cuba, just 90 miles from U.S. shores. Kennedy rejected both military strikes and inaction, instead imposing a naval blockade of Cuba while engaging in tense negotiations with Soviet leader Nikita Khrushchev. The crisis was resolved when the Soviets agreed to remove the missiles in exchange for a U.S. pledge not to invade Cuba and a secret agreement to remove U.S. missiles from Turkey. Kennedy's handling of this crisis, which brought the world to the brink of nuclear war, is widely regarded as his finest hour as president. Kennedy also made significant contributions to space exploration. In May 1961, he set the ambitious goal of landing a man on the moon before the end of the decade. This vision led to the Apollo program, which culminated in the successful moon landing in July 1969, fulfilling Kennedy's pledge. His famous declaration, "We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard," inspired a generation of Americans and symbolized the optimism and ambition of his presidency. In the realm of international development, Kennedy established the Peace Corps in 1961, a program that sent American volunteers to developing countries to assist with education, agriculture, healthcare, and other needs. This initiative reflected Kennedy's belief in America's responsibility to help less fortunate nations and to build positive relationships around the world. The Peace Corps continues to operate today and has sent more than 240,000 Americans to serve in 142 countries. Kennedy also launched the Alliance for Progress, a program of economic cooperation between the United States and Latin American countries. This initiative aimed to promote economic growth, social reform, and democratic governance in Latin America as alternatives to communist revolution. While the program had mixed results, it represented an important attempt to address poverty and inequality in the Western Hemisphere. On the domestic front, Kennedy proposed significant tax cuts to stimulate economic growth, though these were not enacted until after his death. He also expanded Social Security benefits, raised the minimum wage, and supported federal aid to education. His administration took steps to address poverty, laying the groundwork for what would later become Johnson's War on Poverty. Perhaps Kennedy's most significant contribution was less tangible but no less important. He inspired a generation of Americans with his calls to public service and his vision of America's role in the world. His inaugural address, with its famous exhortation, "Ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country," challenged Americans to contribute to the greater good. This spirit of idealism and service became known as the New Frontier, and motivated many young Americans to pursue careers in government, politics, and public service. Challenges and obstacles overcome. Throughout his life, John F. Kennedy faced and overcame numerous challenges and obstacles, demonstrating remarkable resilience and determination. His health problems were perhaps his most persistent personal challenge. From childhood, Kennedy battled various illnesses, including scarlet fever, intestinal problems, and Addison's disease, a rare adrenal gland disorder that can be life-threatening. During his presidency, he suffered from severe chronic back pain that required him to wear a back brace and receive regular injections of painkillers. Despite these health issues, Kennedy projected an image of youth, vigor, and vitality, carefully concealing his medical problems from the public. Kennedy also faced significant political obstacles on his path to the presidency. When he decided to run for president in 1960, he confronted prejudice against his Catholic faith. No Catholic had ever been elected president, and anti-Catholic sentiment was still strong in many parts of the country. Some voters feared that a Catholic president would be influenced by the Pope or would prioritize Catholic interests. Kennedy addressed this issue directly in a famous speech to the Greater Houston Ministerial Association, where he declared, "I am not the Catholic candidate for president. I am the Democratic Party's candidate for president, who happens also to be a Catholic." His handling of this challenge helped him win the election, breaking an important barrier in American politics. As president, Kennedy faced numerous international crises that tested his leadership. The failed Bay of Pigs invasion in April 1961, an attempt to overthrow Cuban leader Fidel Castro using CIA-trained Cuban exiles, was a humiliating setback early in his presidency. Kennedy took full responsibility for the failure, saying, "Victory has 100 fathers, but defeat is an orphan." He learned from this experience, becoming more skeptical of military and intelligence advice, which would serve him well during later crises. The Cuban Missile Crisis in October 1962 presented Kennedy with the most dangerous challenge of his presidency. For 13 days, the world stood on the brink of nuclear war as Kennedy navigated a perilous standoff with the Soviet Union. He faced intense pressure from military advisors to launch airstrikes against the missile sites in Cuba, which could have escalated to full-scale war. Instead, Kennedy chose a more measured approach, combining a naval blockade with diplomatic negotiations. His ability to resist pressure for military action and find a peaceful resolution demonstrated his growth as a leader. Kennedy also faced significant domestic challenges, particularly in advancing civil rights legislation. The powerful Southern bloc in Congress, dominated by segregationist Democrats, strongly opposed civil rights reforms. Kennedy initially moved cautiously on civil rights to avoid alienating these influential lawmakers, whose support he needed for other parts of his agenda. However, as civil rights protests intensified and public opinion shifted, Kennedy took a stronger stand, proposing comprehensive civil rights legislation in June 1963. This decision required political courage, as it risked his standing with Southern voters and complicated his legislative agenda. In his personal life, Kennedy faced the tragedy of losing 2 children. The stillbirth of his daughter Arabella in 1956 and the death of his infant son Patrick in August 1963 were painful losses that he and his wife Jacqueline endured privately while maintaining their public responsibilities. Throughout these various challenges, Kennedy demonstrated an ability to learn from setbacks, adapt his approach, and persevere despite obstacles. His capacity to grow as a leader, particularly in crisis management, and his willingness to take political risks for causes he believed in, such as civil rights, reveal a depth of character that went beyond his charismatic public image. Legacy and impact on the world. John F. Kennedy's legacy and impact on the world remain profound, despite his presidency lasting just over 1,000 days. His assassination on November 22, 1963, in Dallas, Texas, shocked the nation and the world, transforming him from a president with a mixed record of accomplishments into an iconic figure whose potential seemed limitless. This tragic end to his life has influenced how his presidency is remembered, often emphasizing its unfulfilled promise rather than its actual achievements. In American politics and culture, Kennedy's legacy is multifaceted. He is remembered for bringing a sense of youth, optimism, and style to the White House after the more staid Eisenhower years. The term Camelot, used retrospectively to describe the Kennedy administration, captures this sense of a golden, almost mythical era in American history. Kennedy and his wife Jacqueline brought a new level of sophistication and cultural appreciation to the presidency, inviting artists, writers, and musicians to the White House and elevating the arts in American public life. Kennedy's commitment to space exploration has had lasting technological and scientific impacts. His vision of landing a man on the moon before the end of the 1960s was fulfilled in July 1969, when Neil Armstrong became the first human to walk on the lunar surface. The Apollo program not only achieved this remarkable feat but also led to numerous technological innovations and scientific discoveries. NASA's continued exploration of space, including the International Space Station and missions to Mars, can trace their lineage back to Kennedy's bold challenge. In the realm of international relations, Kennedy's handling of the Cuban Missile Crisis established important precedents for crisis management and nuclear diplomacy. The direct communication line between Washington and Moscow, established after the crisis, reduced the risk of miscommunication leading to nuclear war. Kennedy's approach to the crisis, combining firmness with flexibility and leaving room for his adversary to save face, has influenced subsequent generations of leaders dealing with international crises. The Peace Corps, one of Kennedy's most enduring creations, has sent hundreds of thousands of Americans to serve in developing countries, promoting cross-cultural understanding and providing practical assistance in education, health, agriculture, and other areas. This program embodies Kennedy's belief in America's responsibility to help others and has built goodwill toward the United States in many parts of the world. Kennedy's evolution on civil rights, culminating in his proposal for comprehensive civil rights legislation, helped set the stage for the landmark civil rights laws of the 1960s. Though these laws were enacted after his death, Kennedy's growing commitment to this cause helped build momentum for change. His televised address on civil rights in June 1963, in which he called the issue a moral issue, as old as the scriptures and as clear as the American Constitution, helped frame civil rights as a matter of national conscience. Perhaps Kennedy's most significant legacy is less tangible but no less important. He inspired a generation of Americans to pursue public service and to believe in their ability to make a difference in the world. Many who came of age during the Kennedy years were motivated by his call to service and his vision of America's role in the world. This inspiration extended beyond American borders, as young people around the world were captivated by Kennedy's youthful energy and idealism. Kennedy's legacy also includes a more critical reassessment of his presidency that has emerged in the decades since his death. Historians have noted the gap between his inspiring rhetoric and the more limited legislative achievements of his administration. They have also documented the less admirable aspects of his presidency, including his cautious initial approach to civil rights, the authorization of wiretaps on Martin Luther King Jr., and the escalation of American involvement in Vietnam. His personal life, particularly his extramarital affairs, has also been subjected to greater scrutiny. Despite these complexities, Kennedy remains one of the most admired and studied American presidents. His ability to articulate a vision of America's possibilities, his handling of the Cuban Missile Crisis, and his tragic death at a moment when his presidency seemed full of promise have secured his place in history and in the American imagination. John F. Kennedy's life, though cut tragically short, continues to resonate with people around the world because it embodies both extraordinary achievement and unfulfilled potential. His journey from a privileged but sickly child to a war hero, and ultimately to the youngest elected president in American history, demonstrates how determination and resilience can overcome personal challenges. Kennedy's life reminds us that our limitations need not define us, that with courage and perseverance, we can transcend our obstacles and make meaningful contributions to the world. Kennedy's presidency came at a pivotal moment in history, as the United States faced the challenges of the Cold War abroad and the struggle for civil rights at home. Though he did not live to complete his vision for America, the seeds he planted, in civil rights, space exploration, international development, and public service, continued to grow and bear fruit long after his death. His famous inaugural address challenge, "Ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country," continues to inspire people to look beyond their self-interest and contribute to the greater good. Perhaps what makes Kennedy's story so compelling is that it reminds us of both the fragility and the preciousness of life. In just 46 years, he experienced triumph and tragedy, success and failure, love and loss. His life was not perfect. He made mistakes, had flaws, and left tasks unfinished, but he lived with purpose and passion, striving to make a difference in the world. In this, he offers an example not of perfection but of meaningful engagement with the challenges of his time. As we reflect on Kennedy's life and legacy, we might ask ourselves how we too can contribute to addressing the challenges of our own era. How can we, in our own ways, answer Kennedy's call to service? How can we work toward creating a more just, peaceful, and prosperous world? Kennedy's life suggests that while we may not complete all that we set out to do, the effort itself has value and can inspire others to continue the work. In the end, Kennedy's most enduring legacy may be the spirit of hope and possibility that he awakened, the belief that through collective effort and individual commitment, we can build a better future. As Kennedy himself said in his Moon speech at Rice University, "We choose to do these things not because they are easy, but because they are hard, because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and skills." In facing today's challenges, we would do well to bring that same spirit of determination, idealism, and courage that characterized Kennedy's brief but impactful life.